All right. Now, the other thing which is starting to happen in my backyard anyway is the deciduous trees are starting to lose their leaves, but not as fast as I was expecting. But with this cold weather now, they should be dropping quite substantially. So now's going to be the time. We're going to be moving into the deciduous time and cleaning up your deciduous trees, which I'm going to do in a minute. This obviously isn't deciduous. I just wanted to talk briefly, because we talked about a bit last week about natives. And so I just want to continue that briefly before we get straight into the deciduous tree. After going last year to the National Convention, which is on native trees, I got all excited. So I was looking at my own collection. I do have a small handful of natives, but I thought I'd need more. So I went around and I was really keen to see what, not just native to Australia, but native to Adelaide and the Adelaide Hills and the Adelaide Plains. So looking around, I remember last year we went on a dig at the Onkaparinga Gorge, and while we were there looking at all the nice olives there, I was also glancing my eyes over all the nice natives that were growing there as well. And there was a couple around that really kind of caught my eye, which was kind of interesting. And so one of them, and so what I did is I went to the State Flora Nursery at Belen National Park, and if you've ever been there, you know that they have an enormously large collection of natives for sale, and people who work there are really, really knowledgeable. And so I went there and I found, I bought 3 little tube stocks. That was, that was about 9-10 months ago, I think, just little tube stocks. I bought 3. First one was this one, was the sticky hotbush, which grows, you see it growing all over the place, up and down the hills and down on the plains. It produces these, like these little seed capsules, which are kind of interesting. But what I liked about it was at the base of them, they have these really interesting trunks, really angular, very angular, lots of interesting twists and turns, and little sparse foliage at the tips. From existence, sometimes they just look like a very uninteresting bush, but when you got in there and had a good look at them, they looked really interesting. So I went and bought one, and that was just a tube stock. It was only about this big, and in 9 months it's done all this. And what I did, it's got quite long leaves on it. I'm not sure how they're going to reduce, but when I look at it down near the base, there are some quite small leaves, which means that these larger ones, so it means that overall the tree can get smaller leaves on it. So what I did is, you probably can't see, but I put some wire, like I did last week on the Leptospermum. Remember the coastal tea tree? I had a little seedling, I wrapped wire in it, I bent it. I didn't do the little twisty tight coils that I did on the Leptospermum. I put in kind of more angular, and so you may not be able to see, but it comes across here, down across here, and then goes in all directions. It produced back buds all over the trunk, and I'm just letting them grow to thicken up. But it's grown so quickly, like really, really quickly. I'm really surprised. And so this is just going to sit in this pot for a couple of years, let the base thicken up. It is thickening up fairly quickly already. I might be able to show you. It was like initially when I got it, see if I move it across here, that's how thin it was when I got it at the base. Now, can you see the base down there? It's thickening up quite nicely already. And as always, the best thing to do if you want a tree to thicken up is to don't touch it, just let it grow. So that's going, so that's my sticky hotbush. A nice local. The other local, which I see everywhere, is the silver banksia. The banksias make really nice trees. Reading a fair bit about silver banksia. Look, if you go to Morialta Falls and lots of places, you see really beautiful trees, not really tall trees, 10, 15 metres, intricate branching on them, really pretty trees. When Quentin was around here last year, He said for the Banksias, if you remember, he worked on one of our workshop nights. He said they don't backbud very well. So of all the Banksias, he said it's not the easiest Banksia, but you can do them. And so they don't backbud, which means you've got to get the structure right early. So rather than just letting it grow and then cutting it back and letting it get some movement and get some branching in it quickly. Once again, this is just tube stock. It's just a little thing like this when I got it. And the great thing about Banksias is that they thicken at the base really quickly. Even if they're growing in a pot, in a shallow pot, they thicken up quickly. Now, I was going to show you, but all I can see at the moment is weeds, because I'm absolutely inundated at the moment with creeping oxalis, which I'm sure you've all had experience with. I'll show you in a sec. This just had a single trunk. I sort of planted it on an angle. I think when you get a seedling, tube stock, plant them on an angle. That's really important. Unless you want formal upright, just plant them on an angle, and straight away you get movement in that trunk. Always do that when you're planting out little trees. And it just shot out. It's all over the place. I put a little bit of wire on here. I have noticed that whenever I cut back a trunk, it just kind of sprouts out from the base. It's back budding when it's young. It's back budding quite nicely. Apparently when it's older, it doesn't back bud as well. I'm just letting these bottom ones here grow just to thicken up the base a little bit. I've chosen a leader here, put a little bit of movement into it. Just that little bit here. You can just see that there. A little bit of movement. That's all. It's all very modest at this stage. Not much to see. And I'll just let that grow. Beautiful little leaves on it, little serrated leaves. I've seen there's a couple of these in the National Collection. Quentin works on these, and they're really, really pretty. But this is a good local plant. It grows locally. So that's a good candidate. The other one which I got was a mallee. I really like mallees. You go out, you don't have to travel far to get out into the mallee forest. At first glance, they can be a little bit dull, not particularly interesting, but when you get in close, they're quite stunning trees. Especially you get the multiple trunk, that typical mallee look, where you get the multiple trunks coming from the base, nice sinuous trunks on them, multiple trunks, sparse foliage at the top. Once again, this is a long way to go, and it was just a tiny little stick when I got it 9 months ago. It's kind of crazy. It sprouted from the base really quickly. It's got lots of branches, so all I did was get all these little branches. I put some wire on, put a little bit of movement, actually quite a lot of movement, exaggerated that movement, and just let it grow. It's got new growth all over it. It's going to have, now I forgot to write down, I can't remember the species, the exact one. I have to post it out. It's one that grows around Strathalbyn a lot. It's got nice smooth bark on it when it gets older. So if you look at it, if I bring it in, you can see how much it's growing at the base. I'm not sure if you can see that very well. It's hang on, where's the camera? There we go. You can kind of see that a little bit. It's just got little multiple trunks coming from all directions, and it's thickening up really quickly. Like it's right at the very base, about as thick as my little pinky finger at the moment, which is pretty quick. So once again, that'll just sit here. It's just going to. I'm just going to let it grow. It's back budding all over the place. I think is typical with a lot of eucalypts. They back bud really quickly, really easily. And I think that the leaves on this are quite small. I think you could have a small tree, not much bigger than it is now, but imagine nice and thick and sinewy. Or you could have a huge one of these. But I've always thought it would be nice to have a mallee tree with the multiple trunks coming from the base. And you can imagine that in a nice pot that reflects the sort of the earthy colours that we have out in the mallee, greys and light greens and olive greens, and a little accent plant that looks a bit like spinifex or something. You can imagine like a little something like that would look very nice. But yeah, really quick. All from tube stock. They cost a couple of bucks each.
Question, Matt?
Yeah.
With the first one, the sticky hot bush, you said you're going to leave it in the pot for several years. Any plans on root pruning in those several years, or you're just going to
Yeah,
let it?
yes, I will root prune it.
Because the second question is going to be, how would you stop it becoming root bound otherwise?
Yeah, it'll definitely need to be, if it's growing this fast, it'll probably fill up the pot pretty quickly. So usual thing you can tell for those people who don't know, root bound means you've got the roots have completely filled the container. Often they go around, and it's running out of space, it's running out of air. So what we need to do is pull it out, trim those roots, put it back in fresh soil. Yes, I don't know how often it'll have to happen with this tree, because I don't know how fast they grow. It looks pretty fast. It might be annually, it might be every 2 years, I don't know. But I'll just keep an eye on it. Every now and then I'll just pull it out. If it's completely compacted with roots, I will then root prune it. And what I'll do is I will do similar to what I did with my gum trees, is that I'll probably give it a hard prune, wait for it to start to reshoot a little bit. Once the little shoots start to poke their heads out, then I'll give it a root prune. The time of year, look, right now it's growing ridiculously fast. It's got new shoots all over it. And all of these trees have been growing quite strongly over autumn. Summer might be a good time to do it because it's slowed down. Maybe mid-winter, it might slow down then too. I just got to figure out when these guys tend to slow down. So we like to root prune when the growth is slowed down.
Does that stand in water? Sorry, Anne, go on.
Oh, I was following your question actually, Alan. When you do that root prune, Matt, my question would be, wouldn't you put it in a shallower pot, wider pot to make those roots spread? Or
yeah, that would be a good idea if I've got some lying around. Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If you can get them into a shallower white pot, a longer pot, you do that early. Absolutely. At this stage, yeah, they were just tiny little seedlings. But yeah, if I've got one of those, that will certainly help. Yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend planting these in the ground because they're just going to send out big, thick tap roots down, and you may set it back. They grow so quickly. I think we could probably develop these in pots. But there's also the potential. I think with sticky hotwood, it would be nice if we had somewhere we could try and dig one up and see if that works. But obviously not in a national park. It would have to be somebody's private land. But it might be interesting to try to dig one of these up because they do have really, really nice trunks on them. They're common as, so we're not endangering anything by digging up a plant from the wild. I wouldn't have too many problems with that. But yeah, that might be something down the track.
They grow from seed as well.
Yes, absolutely. If you go to the bush, they are prolific little seed pods. They're very cool looking trees. But the little flowers, little seed pods are really cool. So if you like Terry, you like to go out and collect seeds and propagate them, yeah, fill your boots, you probably find them everywhere. But having said that, the seedlings are dead cheap. You're probably not going to get them at Bunnings, but it's obviously a state flora. Yeah. Why they sell these, I don't know. How many people choose to plant these out because they're everywhere? If you go out in the bush, they're everywhere anyway. There you go. I think they're a good potential.
Do you put them in water?
Yeah, they're quite. I've found that the Banksia and this one, they're no more thirsty than anything else. The mallee, though, that's the thirsty tree.
Because I know the white,
yeah,
like a white line on the bottom of the pot.
Yeah, most of my gum trees, I've got river red gums, and they all sit in water, a tray of water when they're growing. This one I haven't yet because the roots haven't quite got down to the bottom of the pot yet. If you stand them in water and there's no roots at the bottom, especially this time of year, the water can go sour. So because it's just sitting there stagnating. So once the roots get down to the bottom, they've filled it pretty well, then you're safe to stand it in water. I wouldn't do it before then. Any other questions about these trio of natives here? These three trees? No. All right. That's a big one. All right. So, deciduous trees. I really like deciduous trees. Actually, look, before we go on, there was a question about some of the weeds that we get this time of year a couple of Tuesday nights ago, and somebody wanted to know, they were describing this weed, and it was obviously Creeping oxalis. I touched on it briefly before. It's going a bit rampant in my backyard. What Creeping oxalis, it looks like a clover. If you've seen this, you'll, can you see, it looks like a little clover. It's got little heart-shaped leaves, and it puts runners in all directions. It produces pretty little yellow flowers. And if you let them go, they produce seed pods. And when the seed pods are ripe, they explode and they scatter seeds up to 1 metre, which is how they just get everywhere. So it's not pretty little clover. It's a Creeping oxalis. It's a weed. Pull it out at first opportunity. It's hard to keep on top of unless they produce long little tap roots. So when you pull them up, the best thing to do is continually pull them out. It's a bit tedious, but get a pair of tweezers and just keep pulling them out, especially when they're younger. They may keep a little tubus, a little in the ground, but if you keep doing it, eventually you'll exhaust them. If it gets really bad, you can use a bit of glyphosate, so 0 or something like that. That will knock them off too, but obviously you need to be careful when you use that. But yeah, Creeping oxalis.
Now, there is a product called, I think it's Bindi Eye, 2 eyes on it, that you can mix in a watering can and put on your lawn, and that won't kill your cooch or anything. So, but read the label. But I would never put it on my pots, obviously, unless you use a cotton bud. And that's the top of the plant. But you can certainly get it out of your lawn eventually by using a chemical. Yeah.
Look, I've used 0 on my bonsai, not on the trees obviously, but on a really bad infestation, which just creates a thick mat. You can spray it, it's fine. Glyphosate doesn't have an effect on woody plants, so your tree should be safe, but you still got to be careful. Don't get it on the leaves. Don't let it soak down into the root zone. But if you paint it on or you give it a light spray, I've done that many times. I've never had an issue, but some trees are probably more sensitive than others, so your mileage may vary. But yeah, you can do that. So enough about weeds. Let's talk about something that's not a weed. This is a Crepe Myrtle. This Crepe Myrtle was dug up from my front yard many years ago. You probably didn't talk about this tree before. It was when I moved into this house about 15, 20 years ago, there was a Crepe Myrtle growing in the corner in a shady spot. It was quite long and lanky, and it wasn't in the right spot. So Vanessa and I, we decided to pull it up. And I went to dig it up and I cleared away the leaf litter, and my eyes lit up because it had this really nice base on it, this stump at the bottom. The tree was probably about 5 metres tall, fairly unremarkable, but down the bottom it had this really nice base. This big stump, 3 main trunks, a few other ones, and my eyes lit up. So I got out the shovel and I dug it up. Luckily, it was in winter, which is a good time to dig up deciduous trees because they're dormant. You can dig them up and take away a lot of the roots and they'll survive. So I dug this one up, put it into probably this, actually no, it was in another plastic container, and it grew really, really quite quickly. And so that was, it wasn't how long, I'm trying to think how long ago. It was probably more like 10 years ago. And what I did is initially I had these 3 stumps, but I had no branches or sort of continuation of the trunks. So I had to sort of grow those bits on from scratch. So if you can see from around, so if I look at this, I'll go up to one side, there we go. This main one here, down the bottom here, this section of trunk here did not exist. It wasn't there. It stopped here. So this one here stopped about there. This top one here as well stopped about there. This main trunk, I'm not sure you can see, which I'm pointing to, that didn't exist. And on the side, yeah, this nice one along here stopped about there. So what I had to do is I really wanted some new leaders. I needed new leaders on these. So I let them grow. It's coming back to me now. It was in a big plastic tub. I let them grow and I didn't touch them for about 3 or 4 years because they really needed to get thick. You can see if I hold up, you'll be able to see this. Okay. Can you see? Right, well, there we go. There's a big scar there. That's where it finished. So all of this had to grow. So you can see how thick that is. So compared to my thumb, it's really thick. And that took a long time. I was in a hurry because I've got a backyard full of trees. So it sat there and it grew, and those branches became 3 or 4 meters tall. They flowered. That was nice. But that's all it did for quite a few years. And I didn't touch it really until these new leaders, until they got really, really thick. And then only then was it time to then start cutting back. And the great thing about these, if you cut them back hard, especially over winter, they sprout back on wood really, really nicely. And so I let then the secondary branches grow, cut them back, let them grow, come back. And then, and now I'm kind of starting to work on the fine ramification. Although I had a setback last year when I was looking at it. I posted this one on A Bonsai, and it was pointed out to me quite rightly that I had let it get way too lanky, it needed to come right back again. So I sort of let it get away from me. So there was a lot of these branches were a lot further out, but there was long, straight, boring bits on them. I needed to bring it right back again. So I gave it quite a severe prune last year. But it has responded. And so with these crepe myrtles, what's really nice about them is that you can treat them like well, maybe I'm trying to think, Chinese elm or something. They grow long, thin canes on them with pairs. So actually it's more like a maple. So little pairs of leaves, and you just let them grow to about 4 or 5 pairs, and then you cut them back to 1 pair, and then they sprout from the base of those pair of leaves. And you can build up ramification really, really quickly on these guys, like quicker than most other trees I've worked on, which is really cool. So you get these, you can see in a year it's produced quite a lot of ramification. But what I need to do now though is thin it out, because when I look at it, there's a lot of, when I get in close, there's a lot of leaves, there's a lot of small branches in here that are either in the wrong place, or there's too many coming from the one spot. And you know, I'm always going on about this, you want, wherever there's a fork, you want 2 shoots, 2 branches coming from one spot, no more. Try not to get 3. Occasionally you can let it, but not too much. So I want those little fork 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 all the way throughout the tree. You do that, the tree will look a lot better. You won't get little ugly bumps along, all sorts of things. Now there's a few things I also need to do. I have decided, yeah, so that's the front for you, that's looking at the front. I'm not sure if you can see, there's a branch coming under here, that one there. You can see it's quite long without anything happening to it. The reason is this branch here, I'm letting it grow to thicken up, because it's always been a bit of a weak branch because it's down fairly low, but I want this to be fairly strong. And so I'm just kind of letting it go. I pruned it back a little bit because it was interfering with other trees nearby, took it back. I just want this to thicken up. I think, I haven't decided yet. I think I might need to let it go a little bit longer. I think I want it to be just a little bit thicker. So I'm not going to touch that branch. This one here is harder to see, but it cuts across the front here. It cuts across, it's down low. And I've decided that it goes too long before it branches. It's got a very long straight bit there. Let's see if I can get that in close. This is quite heavy. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that one there. You can see it goes across. There's a big long straight section here, and it also goes across, cuts across the whole thing. I'm wondering, do I actually want that branch there? The reason I'm leaving it there for the moment is because this tree has 3 main trunks, 1, 2, 3. And this front trunk is quite thick. If I cut that off, it's only got 1 branch and a little apex. And to me, you've got a thick trunk that's not supporting much foliage. And to me, that doesn't make sense. So this trunk needs to have some more branches on it. So that's why I'm leaving this branch here. I think it's going to look odd without it, but I need to bring it in. And to do that, basically, I'm going to cut most of that off. So all this nice ramification is done. I'm actually going to get rid of. I'm going to cut that, and it'll back bud quite nicely. However, I'm not going to do that right now. It's just a little bit early in the season. I'm going to leave that till it's close to the spring and starting to bud out a little bit. And then I'm going to cut it back, and it should produce back buds along this branch and pull this foliage in a little bit closer. So that's the plan for that. But the rest of the tree, it's a matter of annual maintenance every year, getting in, taking out the long straggly bits, pulling it in a little bit closer. And you do that year after year after year. The tree will respond by producing more and more finer branches, and it'll look more refined, and every year it'll look better, until eventually this will just fill out with very fine twigs all over the crown, all over the branches. It's going to look really nice. I really like this tree in winter because it's got the really nice bark on it. It's got nice flaky bark and mottled patterns on it. It kind of produces autumn colour, sort of. You can see the colours on this now, kind of oranges and yellows. It does flower if I let it. However, at the moment, I'm not letting it flower because I'm just trying to keep that ramification. So I prune it constantly over the growing season, and these flower at the tips. If I want it to flower, I would have to not touch it. I may do that one day and it'll look pretty with lots of flowers on it, but for the moment, I want that tight ramification. So what I need to do is get out my scissors and branch cutters, and I need to get stuck into this tree. So often what I'll do with a deciduous tree, the best thing to do is to be methodical, rather than just getting there and clipping off random bits that look wrong. Start at the top, start at the bottom, whatever it is that you prefer to do, and follow a branch down, complete a branch, move on to the next branch. Be methodical. That way you won't miss anything. Because occasionally I've done this, and then come spring, you go to repot it or something, you look at it and go, I've completely forgotten, I've missed a branch that hasn't been done properly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this, an easy one. I'm going to start with this branch on the side here. I'm going to start at the top, work my way down. And what I need to do is all the way through it, if I can chop one off, I chop off a little twig. And I'm hoping you're going to see this. This is a twig, which I've just, where are we? Hey, come back, there we are, a little twig. It looks just like a bare twig, but all along it, where are we? Come back, there it is. Sorry, this is hard to do. All along here.
You need to be just a little bit further away, Matt. Yeah.
How's that? Okay. As you can see, all along here, there's bud, 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 all the way along. I'll just move that There are tiny little, there we go, tiny little buds, very hard to see. They're in pairs on either side of that twig. You may not be able to see those, no apologies, but there are little buds all the way along. So that's the clue when I'm pruning back. I like to cut back to the first, I keep losing the camera. You probably can't see that, but I'm just taking that back to the first pair of buds. They're tiny, but I can see them quite clearly here. Cut back to those first pair of buds all over the tree.
Matt, how much do you normally leave at the end, just before the bud?
Good point. I leave a little stub. I don't cut flush up against the buds because you're going to get a little bit of drying out and you're going to lose those buds if you prune too close. So I leave, look, probably take it halfway between that bud and the next one, if that makes sense. So probably, depending on how close together they are, because it varies. In some places they'll be a centimetre apart, other times they're only a couple of millimetres.
And then you clean those up later on?
Yeah, that's right. So you get these little stubs all over. In fact, I can see stubs on here from last year. So I'm going to clean them up as I go as well. So if I start at this section here, you can see there's some quite long sections on here, and I wish I could get the camera in really close. This might be another candidate for a video. And what I'm going to do is, firstly here, I'm going to clean up that little stub, and I'm going to take all of these little ones back to 2 or 3 buds. And then what's going to happen afterwards is I'm going to have a look at the tree, see how does that look, and I'll see all the little straight boring bits that I want to get rid of. So this is the first thing I do. You'll see the finished result in a sec. I'm going around some of these little twigs are really fine, but I've got to do every one. But I've got to say, this is really fun. I really enjoy doing this. Some people might find this tedious, but if you find this tedious, then maybe bonsai isn't for you. I don't know. I quite enjoy doing this. And I'm going to go right through. There's some quite long shoots on here. I say shoots, little twigs. And that one's too long. Take that one back. Also, I can see some areas where there's more than one shoot coming, sorry, more than 2 shoots coming from the one junction. There's a big stub here, which I will clean that up. And there's also where a branch leaves, or where a shoot leaves a branch, often in the crux, where it joins, sometimes there's a little shoot coming from there as well. Cleaning up all, there's a lot of stubs left over from last year, where I did this last year. Some of them are quite thick, because like I said last year, I went on it fairly hard. Okay, bear with me, almost done this section. And by doing this, I found that the tree responds, that initial flush of growth in spring, almost all of the buds that I leave will shoot, almost all of them. So I can afford to be quite picky as to which ones I keep and which ones I lose. Now, it's too long. All right, so what I've done is that top section, and I'm going to go the next one down as well. I may not do the whole tree in front of you guys because it's going to get a bit dull, but I'll do some sections. Feel free to ask questions at this stage, because at the moment I'm just trimming. What we need is a second camera here. with extreme close up. Okay. So, I'm not sure if you can see. So once again, this is the section here. It's probably looking a lot barer. So I've taken one of those tweezers, but now I'm looking at it, I'm seeing that a lot of these branches have long, straight, uninteresting bits in them. So I'm actually going to take some of these right back, even back. I'm going to lose some of the branches that I've created. I'm going to take this right back. Just because there are long, straight sections with no taper.
Matt?
Yep.
With what you're doing and trimming back in between the buds, would you use the same procedure for, hang on, you need to cut your, would you use the same procedure for a Japanese maple?
Yeah, short answer is yes. Absolutely. Cut back, leave a little stub. I've got a Japanese maple. I would have shown you that today, but it's just not ready. Okay, now it looks like now I'm actually taking this back. I'm actually losing a lot of those little branches which I've just trimmed. I've got scissors and I've got small branch cutters. Okay, once again, no, that's too long. And I find that when I start, I kind of start off conservatively, leaving quite a bit. And then as I go, I keep cutting back harder and harder and harder until now there's hardly anything left. You can see there's not much left. But the tree, what's left though, there are all those little branches have all covered in little buds and they will go off, they will shoot off pretty quick. By doing this too, by removing the long straight boring bits, that's on it. That's got to go as well. By removing the boring bits, it'll also improve the taper as well. By doing this constantly, because what we're doing is we are constantly replacing the leader on your branches and the apex, pruning back to further back along the tree, letting the tree grow into that space. Okay, I'm going on to the next one. I'm also occasionally I'm finding bar branches. A bar branch is where you've got a trunk or a branch, and you've got branches coming out from both sides of it, forming a bar. We try to reduce those as much as possible. Once again, it's too many branches coming from the one spot. There we go. While I'm doing this, also let you know I've spoken to the ranger for the Ongaparina National Park. He's fine for us to do another dig there, but not yet, because the rules are at the moment they're not allowing groups of people into the park. Like I said, once the rules get a little bit more relaxed, we should be able to have small groups of people in there to do it. Okay. Now, as you can see, there's not much left of this tree. This bit. If you can see here, there's a stub, quite a thick stub, which I left on here. So this is the branch. Oh, can you see that? Branch, second branch, and where it leaves, there's a stub. That's all dried off, so I can take that right back without cutting into green wood. Okay. So you can see how hard I've got on that, like quite hard. Because at this stage, I'm still building the basic structure of the branches. Once you've got that basic structure in place, then what you're doing is just going around and cutting back all the long growth, all the shoots back to two or three buds, all over the tree, and you're just increasing the ramification by doing that.
Matt,
Yeah.
when you say 2 or 3 buds, do you mean 2 or 3 pairs of buds in this case?
2 or 3 buds. On this one, they mostly come in pairs, but occasionally they don't. They come alternate as well. I don't know why. Usually they're in little pairs. Occasionally they're in alternate. I cut back to 1 pair or 2 or 3 alternate. Does that make sense? Deciduous trees, they tend to either be in pairs. If they're a pair, an example is a Japanese maple, even a non-deciduous, an olive tree tends to produce leaves in pairs. What's another example? Ash trees are in pairs, so you get 2 leaves coming from, 1 leaf coming from each side. Or then you get ones like elm trees, Chinese elms that we grow, the leaves alternate up the stem.
Matt,
So,
you wouldn't, have you ever wired this tree?
yes, absolutely. I will wire this tree. Once I've cleaned this up, maybe a few little branches that need a tweak and aren't quite in the right space. It's quite brittle. Like these branches are really brittle. So I wouldn't wire them like I would with the junipers that we did a few weeks ago. We can really, then you can't do that with these, they'll just snap. But you can kind of guide them and point them in the right direction. There's a couple here which are a little bit too upright, okay? So that's the first trunk. And you can see, you're probably horrified, but it's not got a lot on it, but it is completely covered. Yeah, covered in buds. All those little stumps that I've left, there was a lot of stuff there that I didn't like. I keep seeing them. They're just coming from the wrong spot, the inside of the curve, or interfering with another branch. And I've cleaned it right up. This tree is, like, it's had the main structure already done, but we're working on the secondary and tertiary branches now. So it's in that second stage. All right, so that one's done. I'm looking at it now, I'm kind of happy with that. So I'm going to go to the main branch, the main trunk here. It splits about halfway up around here. It splits into 2. So I've also, looking at it, it's sort of got 2 apexes, which I'm always saying you don't want 2 apexes. So I'm going to decide. There's one that comes forward and there's one at the back here. I'll prune it up first. See a couple of big stumps sticking out. There are those. And there's lots of little shoots coming from random spots at the base of existing branches that I don't want. Okay, so I'll start with the tallest bit. Once again, I'm going through and I'm taking each one back just to a couple of shoots. If they do alternate, if the shoots are sort of alternating, you can also prune back to the shoots that are pointing in the direction that you want. Because sometimes they go up or down or left or right, and depending on where you want that branch to eventually go, you cut to the shoot that's going in the direction that you want. Now, I'm going pretty fast here now, but go at your own space, go at your own pace, don't rush it. I've been pruning this tree so many times, I kind of know what I want ahead of time.
Matt?
Yes. Yeah.
Can you just talk a little bit about the apex and how you've got that structured, please?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So what I might do, if I tip this up like that, I'm hoping you can see you've got one branch, one main trunk coming out this way, one coming out forward, and this other one coming up here. Can you see that? And that middle one, this middle one, if I pick that up, you've got an apex here going sort of slightly towards the back of the tree, and the main one here coming forwards. So I'm just looking at the picture here, so I'm just going to make that bigger so I can see what I'm doing. Bear with me. There we go. Oh, hang on. There we go. Ah, okay. I can see what's going on now. All right. So with this tree, where are we? It's backwards in there. You can see this one here. That forms an apex. It comes up here and up to here. Okay. And then you've also got this one back here as well. So when it's facing forwards towards you, you've got these two apexes. Now the angle that the camera's on is actually, if I tip it up slightly like that, you can see there's an apex here and an apex back here. So when you're looking at it kind of front on, you really want this one to be the apex. But this one back here, you can't tell from the angle of the camera, but they're about equal heights, which I don't really want. This back one should be lower. I'm thinking it should be lower. And then this is the main apex here. It is a long way forward. It's a long way forward. And there's another little apex down here for this branch. So this trunk here has an apex, it's hard to see, here. And this one has one up here. So I'm trying to keep them a little bit separate. Yeah. Does that make sense? When I say I've got two apexes, you can see it from there. That's a better angle. So I've got one here and one here. So what I want to do is reduce this one down quite a bit lower and have this one up higher. Does that answer your question, Terry?
Yeah, I'm sort of just interested, like, normally when you see trees grow, they have like just, you know, the central leader coming up.
Yeah.
So when you get to the top, do you just sort of keep two branches, like, do you sort of separate them, or?
Yeah.
I mean, to keep it broad, do you understand what I'm asking?
I think so. This apex here, it should really be good if it backfilled this area too. So it fills this whole area, and this just becomes a back branch. So, yeah, as you can see, this is the stump. The stump, that's where it finished. When I dug it up, that's all it was. It finished there. So that apex and this apex here were all grown. Maybe, I'm thinking eventually, if this apex here, this branch, it's hard to see, there's a branch here. If it backfills this area, I can kind of reduce this and reduce this and reduce this. So eventually it may even come off completely. Yeah, this one here. Eventually I don't think I'm going to need it. Because I want this to be the apex, this whole area here to be the apex, and this one to be right down. I'm leaving it there for the moment for two reasons. One, it looks a bit nicer to fill out this back area. Two, if I cut it off now, it'll be, we remember, especially with deciduous trees, if we cut off a lot of foliage and leave the roots intact, it'll respond by really strong growth. And I want to spread that growth around the tree to get it finer and finer. So I don't want to go too hard and remove some of the big branches just yet. I'm really hoping that makes sense. So what I need to do now, there's heaps of little stubs all over this tree, and I'm taking this right back once again. There's a lot of little branches that I'm just getting rid of. There's another stump. Now last week I dropped off a whole lot of trident maple seeds at Barry's at Spirit Bonsai. He's got a big box full of trident maple seeds and Chinese elm seeds. Hopefully you would have seen that email I sent out on how to germinate maple seeds. It's an easy process. It works really well. And then later in the coming weeks, we'll send out articles of what to do when you have a tray full of maple seeds and what you can do with them. Luke's putting together a document on how to do a root over rock because he does a lot of that. He's really good at it. Yeah, we'll put together an article on how to build a forest. All sorts of things you can do with maple seed ones. All right. I also, yesterday, I spoke to Lee Tate, the curator of the National Collection in Canberra, to see how he's doing. He's doing really well. He got really sick just as the coronavirus was kicking here in Australia. He came back from a cruise 1 week before the Ruby Princess, and he came down with a fever, and he was in the hospital. And they were convinced it was coronavirus, but it wasn't. It was a different type of virus. So poor Lee. But the National Collection there, he says it's really quiet. Obviously, there's no visitors there. So he and Sam, the assistant curator, are spending their time. There's no volunteers there at the moment either. They're just working on the trees. He says it's nice and quiet. They're getting a lot of work done, a lot of things they've been wanting to do for a while. But it's good to know that somebody is there doing the good work. That'll brush this, come on. Right there. All right, so once again, I have gone through it. And same again, I tend to start off kind of slowly and then get harder and harder, get back harder and harder. There we go. All right, so that's the apex there, that secondary apex. That I'm thinking, yeah, one day I'd like to remove that. So I'm going to work my way down. There's heaps and heaps of tiny little shoots coming from the base of all of these branches. I'm cleaning them out. Big stump. The stumps are good because what they've done is they've dried out over summer, so I can take them off quite easily without biting into the green wood. Let's see. Okay. So I've got other trees, a lot of other deciduous trees out there, which haven't quite dropped their leaves yet. My ash trees are doing nothing. They're just sitting there. They haven't changed colour or anything. I've got some hawthorn trees which have coloured up, and they're dropping their leaves now. Usually what I do, the timing for this is I wait for that last leaf to fall. This one's still obviously got a few leaves still on it. But I'm confident enough with this that it'll be fine. But yeah, usually I just wait for that last leaf to fall, and that's the time you can get in. Trim them up, wire them if you want to. You can do some major pruning if you want to. But I was looking at my trees last night, and even though I keep saying I really like deciduous trees, I love working with them, I noticed only about 20% of my trees are deciduous, probably actually even less. The thing with deciduous trees is that they take, you've got to be patient. They take a long time to develop compared to junipers and olives and things like this, because you've got to build them from scratch. You can't just get a bush and wire it into an interesting shape and then let it recover. You've got to get in and do what I do, what I'm doing now. Every year you take it back to the basics, to the structure that you want, and let it grow, take it back, let it grow, take it back. And you've got to build the tree from the ground up. All right, so that is this main trunk here. I've done that section there. So I'm now going to move over to the main apex. There's actually not that much more to do because I'm leaving some branches. Okay. So once again, start at the top, work your way down. Get all of these done. It's a long straight bit, so I'll take all that off. If you don't get rid of the long, straight, boring bits now, they will bug you for many, many, many years. And you think, why didn't I take that back before? So, do it now. Take the hit, because the tree will look a bit better. Take the hit now. But the tree will look better in the long run. And that's what bonsai is all about, really. We take things slowly. We make the decisions, and the results of those decisions we don't see for a few years. So yes, be patient. I probably don't have to tell bonsai people to be patient, but be patient. There's a Japanese word which I can't remember what it is. Somebody might be able to help me, which means continuous small improvement, incremental improvements year after year. And that's what we're aiming for. So when this tree shoots again in spring, like I said, it's going to produce some fairly strong growth. And what I'll do is I'll just let that first flush of growth, I won't touch it. I'll let it go until the leaves start to harden off a little bit, and then I'll get in and I'll start pruning it, pinching the new growth. I tend to do that. The exception, because there's always an exception, is with Japanese maples. We'll talk about that when we do a Japanese maple. But with the Japanese maple, when they first produce little buds and little leaves, you've got to get in there quickly and take out the centre of those, the centre leaves out of those. But we'll go into that more detail later. But that's the exception. Any questions out there about anything? No? Cool. I have also, I haven't spoken to Manny about this yet, I've spoken to our two, what were going to be our visiting tutors, Neil and Andrew Edge, Neil Pavery. They're good to do a demonstration over Zoom as well. So we might organise that as well. All right. Where's the branch? I'm trying to see this one here. See that there? I'm just trying to show you an example. It's got some nice little foliage at the tips of it, starting to ramify, but the base of it is just way too long, so I'm cutting that off. So what I'm cutting off is basically last summer's growth. And I do have some photos, which I might put up on Facebook, because today I actually remembered to take a before photo. So I've taken a before photo of this. So on Facebook, I will put on a before and after. I'll also show a picture of how it looked this time last year. So you can see how much, even though I've taken off a lot of growth, how much has gone on in 1 year. All right, so that's the main apex done. Up around here, there's still a few straight bits. I may take it back a little bit further. This bit here is bothering me a bit. We'll try and bring it down a bit. I'll see how it looks once I've done everything else. All right, so the last apex, I've done the apex of that trunk. This one has 2 apexes. I'll do this last one now. What time is it? 11 o'clock. All right. You're doing good. I've got no idea what I'm going to do next week yet. It depends what trees are doing. Has anybody got any autumn colour out there? Anything looking nice at the moment?
Yep. Trident maples are nicely coloured. Most of mine have actually lost all their leaves.
Okay, cool.
I've got Japanese maples that actually look really good this year.
Excellent.
Yeah, so we. The ginkgos are beautifully yellow.
Yeah, cool. My tried maples, the ones which are in bonsai pots, are still green. They're starting to yellow at the base. They're starting to go red at the base. The ones which are just in training pots and are just like little scruffy things, they're all dropping their leaves and turning a nice colour as well. But the recent cold nights that we've had should result in my ash trees and all the other trees that have been lagging. Hopefully by now they will have started to respond. So you probably notice it's hard for me to concentrate on this and talk at the same time. I always admire those demonstrators who can talk and concentrate on doing something like this together. I find it hard sometimes, so bear with me. Okay.
Anyone ever done a dogwood bonsai?
So what was that? I didn't catch that.
Anyone ever done a dogwood bonsai?
I haven't. No. They're really nice. I've seen pictures of them in the magazines and things, and they look really cool. But no, I've never worked on a dogwood. Do you have one?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah. Good answer. Now, I'm sure you can see. All right. So, a bit hard to see against the background. There we go. There it is. It's confusing because in the screen it's all backwards. This nice trunk here, you can see it's got nice movement. There's two branches coming out from underneath. There's this one, and there's a tiny little one. You may not be able to see it directly underneath. Tiny little thing here. I'm thinking I would like, so if I spin that around, which where they are, oh, where have I lost it? There it is here. It's going to fill in a little gap here, which I really want. I've filled it with foliage. There's two of them, but the really long one, the longer one is thicker and is probably a good candidate, but it comes from inside this curve. Can you see that? There's a curve here, the main trunk. And this one's coming from the inside of the curve, which just looks ugly. Whereas the one down here, you may not, is coming here on the outside of the curve, which even though it's a tiny little sticky thing, I'm going to encourage that one to grow. So I'm going to take up the one from the inside of the curve and leave that tiny little, it's so tiny, it's like almost like a hair. Hopefully that one will then respond and fill in that gap. All right. I'm just at that finish, I reckon. Although I'm going to keep looking at this and seeing bits of the button, so I'll probably, I can see something straight away. So once again, I'm going to leave this branch here. I'm leaving that because I want it to get thicker. I don't think it's thick enough. We like the lower branches to be quite thick. Rule of thumb, a good rule of thumb, is that if this one here is 1/3 of the thickness of the trunk where it leaves, that would be good. So it's going to get a little bit thicker. Not much, just a little bit. So I'm going to let this go. Once it thickens up, I'm going to cut it right back to a stump. Okay, because this is long and straight, that's not a great branch. But I cut it right back, it'll produce back branches, and then I'll cut back, and then I can use those to build the branch. Now we can also see, this one here as well. This is the strange branch, which cuts across the whole design, which is a bit odd. But if I can get that right back to that little stump and have like a little foliage pad here, that will work. Okay. But for now, I'm going to leave it. So I'm not going to bother pruning all this off because I'm going to lose it anyway. But I'm not keen on the timing of doing that just yet. And this branch here, which I wanted, I worked really hard to get it. It was similar to that one that I just left recently, a tiny little thing. but I needed something down there. And I let it grow quite a few years just to let it gain strength. Okay, I think that's just about enough. And I just want to see if we can give an example. Yeah, see this branch here? Get around, you can see it. Here, it's got a long, it's quite straight. It's got a little branch at the base, branch on the other side, and then it keeps going in a straight direction. If I cut that straight bit out, it's right here. Yeah, there it is. You can kind of see that. I'll take it right back. So straight away, that little branch doesn't go very far straight. It suddenly kicks off in another direction.
Matt?
Yeah.
With that long branch you had that you've left, yep.
That
So
one?
when you do cut that back,
Yep.
how far back will you actually cut it first?
Okay. What I'll do is at the moment, I can't, because it's quite thick, I can't see where the buds are along here. I can't see any buds, but I know they're there. So I'll probably cut it back to about there, longer than I want, and then just see where it buds back from. Okay. Some trees like English elms, if you have a mature branch like this, if this is an English elm, and I waited till summer and I cut it, it would actually produce shoots at that cut site and shoot off, which is kind of handy. This doesn't, and trident maples are the same. They will only bud from where there used to be an internode there at some stage. Okay. So I don't know where it's going to back bud to, so I'm just going to cut here, see where it comes back from, cut it back. Hopefully it'll come back nice and close.
Thank you.
Yeah, maybe even there might be some at the base, I don't know. So yeah, that's the plan. The tree will decide where that branch is going to be. This one here too, you can see there's a bit of inverse taper. You can see that it comes along here, it gets thinner there, and it gets thicker here at the base because I've let that grow quite strongly. So by cutting that off, we'll also get rid of that inverse taper. All right. So there we go. That's his tree. It's I'll put on some before and after photos. You may think I've gone a bit too hard, but the tree will respond accordingly. I've got a whole lot of trees that I need to do this on. I've got a Zelkova, broom style Zelkova, but it's still got all its leaves all over, so I won't do that just yet. Yeah, so this is the first sort of deciduous tree I've really had a chance to do this with. All right. Are there any questions? Does anybody want to talk about anything I've done today or anything you want to talk about? What's happening in the backyard?
You're not going to be repotting that this year, are you?
If I do, it'll be spring. I'm trying to remember. I'll have to look up and see when I repotted it last. It is getting, the soil here is getting fairly hard now, and it's not soaking up the water as well. So yeah, I may give it a root prune. It wouldn't be a hard one, but I'll give it a root prune, I think.
And what sort of pot would you eventually put it in? What has Luke got for
What's Luke got? Look, I think, see, obviously this is a plastic training pot. I'm thinking a quite shallow oval dish would look quite nice on this. I think a lot of deciduous trees, you know, we tend to go for these rectangular, angular masculine trees or pots for evergreen trees, especially I'm thinking pines and junipers and cypresses. I think with deciduous trees, often softer lines work really well. If I was in Japan, this would be in a blue glazed oval pot, because almost all of their deciduous trees tend to be blue glazed oval pots. I think an oval pot would actually work really well. The type of glazed, I think a glazed pot works really well with a deciduous tree. You either match the foliage or if you want to match it, either the foliage or this nice bark, The bark's got some nice colours in it. It's got some greys and some browns and some light greens. You could pick one of those colours, that would look nice. Or you go to something that's going to contrast it completely. I've even seen some of these in a cream white. Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But I'm thinking a greeny brown glaze might work well on this. Yeah, dark green glaze might look nice up against the dark green foliage. But yeah, I'm thinking a shallow oval pot at this stage. Nothing too ornate, because it's got a lovely trunk. You don't want to put your eye away from that so much. Yeah, it's a big, massive trunk, and it's really interesting. Yeah, so I think for me, the really individual, rugged style pots, really interesting looking pots suit conifers really well. With the deciduous, I tend to go for something better plain and simple, but we'll see. I always say that, but then Luke shows me something and I go, oh yeah, that looks really cool too. So I've never let that one go. But at this stage, that's what I'm looking at. Any other questions? No? Okay.
That was
All right.
great, Matt. Thank you very much.
No worries. I hope you got something out. This one's a bit harder to show because you can't get in close with the camera. But yeah, maybe I should put in a video as well. So yeah, I'll try and put together a video of a pruning up a juniper. I'll try and do that in the next few days. And so stay safe, everybody. Just remember the restrictions are still in place and we've still got a long way to go. So look after yourselves. Go and work in your trees. I'm looking outside now. It's really sunny and blue sky. So go out into the backyard. All right, everyone.